From the great American Central Plains and the rolling prairies of Kansas, I bid all of you warm greetings, wherever you are in space and time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Midnight on the Prairie. This is your host, Kevin Kelly. Boy, I sure appreciate you stopping by, and I assure you, you'll be glad that you did. My guest tonight is Carter Buschardt, an expert in all things Bigfoot. Yeah, who doesn't like that, right? And let me tell you, folks, Carter is a true boots-on-the-ground researcher and investigator, not one to conduct his investigations from the safe confines of a desk and a computer. Not even close. He's led numerous Bigfoot expeditions in the field, including as an investigator over the past 13 years with the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and he's interviewed over 400 Bigfoot witnesses and counting. He is also the author of 3 Bigfoot books, or Sasquatch books if you prefer, titled Evidence of an Enigma 1, 2, and 3, plus the second editions of the first 2 books. Tonight, he's going to share with us some of his truly surreal personal Bigfoot encounters, as well as relate accounts from other witnesses and what his overall research has uncovered. Okay, let's get started, shall we? Welcome to the show, Carter. Thanks so much for agreeing to appear on Midnight on the Prairie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, I've really been looking forward to visiting with you. Excited about the chance to kind of learn about your work, help spread the word to others. And I don't think you know this, but I've had a lifelong fascination with Bigfoot as well. And I was kind of thinking back, when did that start and why? And I remembered a specific moment. And it's when I was 13 years old in 1976. And my parents and I and a friend were staying at a Motel 6, which was pretty new then. I think it was the first time we'd ever seen one. Of course, you couldn't
Yeah.
pick what you were going to watch. You know, it's a TV with the 3 channels or whatever. There was a special on Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, and I remember being transfixed. And ever since, it's stuck with me as something that I'm just completely fascinated by. I was curious, when did you first become fascinated with Bigfoot and why? What's your story?
Well, somewhat similar to yours, I was probably 10, don't remember the date, but I saw this show In Search of with Leonard Nimoy.
Ah,
And that was the first time I had seen the Patterson Gimlin film. And when I saw that, I went, that's real.
hmm,
That's real. Oh my God. And I already had a reason, I had a belief, let's say, that the world was not as it was told to us and as it appears. There's
yeah,
far more going on in the world and the universe. But once I saw that, I was hooked. And, it took a while to sink in because I didn't get into the Sasquatch research officially till 2010, somewhere in there.
yeah.
Just life got in the way. I was a rock drummer for about 20
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
I
I
did
saw that.
comedy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I did comedy for about 5 years. So I had a 25-year break from reality. I was living my own reality.
Right.
And so, but I had certain things happen to me after that guided me to where I'm at today.
Okay.
You know.
Well, I want to ask you about that in a minute then, but so that film you're referring to, that's that iconic one that we all know of. Just the real, I mean, just sauntering, looks at the camera.
Yeah, and her breasts were swinging, her pendulous breasts were moving as she was walking. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. You know,
Yeah,
I didn't know something like this could exist, but I know it's real. I mean, that's real. And that was before hoaxing.
right.
So I had no idea that that was not real. And it turned out it was real. That film is passed muster by everybody and their mother who wants to try to find it to be fake. It's not. It's a
Okay, I
real
was going to
thing.
ask you that. So they've tried to analyze it and so forth, and I guess shadows and everything else just matches up, and I guess the
Oh,
gait, is unusual gait, but it doesn't look like it's a human trying to mimic it.
well, the muscles are bulging in the legs and the back, the butt, the gluteus maximus. Everything is bulging and moving, and the sinew and everything is moving, and you couldn't do that. They did not have the technology, costume wise, to come anywhere close to faking something like that. They didn't have the technology or the knowledge.
Exactly.
And so when you see these muscles bulging, if you put on a costume, uh, your muscles aren't going to be bulging through. You know what I mean? It was just that's the thing that did it, and a lot of work has been done to prove that it was fake, but they couldn't do it. They can't do it.
Okay.
It's the Holy Grail.
Wow. To hear that it's panned out and still stands up to the test, that's pretty amazing. And does it still stand out as one of the best ever? Because I mean, it's the best probably I've ever seen still, I think.
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 films. The other film is the Paul Freeman film, and that he worked in Walla Walla, Washington. He was actually a conservation officer, and he was seeing these Sasquatch on a regular basis, and he started filming. And I've got his footprint hanging here in my office. But this creature, it has not proven to be fake either. And his son, he's passed away now. His son is continuing his work. So there's the Paul Freeman footage. If you get a chance to look at it, you'll see it, and he's just a simple guy, and he was doing this research behind the backs of the conservation department, because the conservation department adamantly denies these beings exist, mostly across the country. Washington would be one of those places that does not deny the existence because there's too much activity up there. You know, I mean, Washington's the capital, Sasquatch capital of the country.
You know, it occurs to me right off the bat, it's too bad that we have to look at it from the perspective of whether it's real or not, whether it's authentic, whether it's convincing, because I've thought about that in the context of you a lot leading up to this. And, you know, your mission of communicating your research is a very difficult one. And I sympathize with that because, and you've gone to great pains in your books and so forth to say things such as, you know, you acknowledge the skepticism surrounding Bigfoot. There could be other explanations for the situations that you report, but you go out of your way to say that you just hope people will be open-minded, consider the findings, and use their own judgment as to where they fall, right?
That's all you got to do is have an open mind. You don't have to believe it, but just consider it. And in my first book, I call it my Brussels sprouts theory, where you don't like Brussels sprouts. You go to a friend's house for dinner and they serve Brussels sprouts. You don't like them, but you don't want to insult the host. So you cut them in half, you spread them around your plate, pretend to take a bite when, you know, and then when no one's looking, you spit it out or hide it under the mashed potatoes or something, because you don't want to embarrass them. But you don't want them to know you don't like part of what they serve. It's the same thing with Sasquatch in a way. You just, you know, you don't have to believe, just consider. If you don't believe, it's not for you. That's fine. It doesn't, you know, there's no right or wrong in your opinion. I don't believe they exist. I'll tell you why 99% of the population at first did not believe is that we are taught from the day you exit the birth canal till you're 18 to 22, depending on if you go to college or not, how to view the world, how to think, what's real, what's not. There's no UFOs, there's no Sasquatch, there's no ghosts, there's no, oh, wait a minute, the government lied, there are UFOs.
Yeah, right.
You know, so we're taught how to view the world. So when you see something, you automatically discount it and try to find a solution. Well, that must be a guy in a ghillie suit. Well, maybe it's a bear. Well, maybe it's a deer standing on its hind legs eating low-hanging fruit. You find any explanation you can to explain what you saw because you know that can't possibly exist. Why? Because the government told you it doesn't exist.
You know, yeah, and I've thought about this a lot because it is just part and parcel with Bigfoot. You always have to struggle with that issue of skepticism and cover-up possibility, that type of thing. The way I see it, we all know if we've had things that are unexplainable happen in our own lives, we're more likely to be more open-minded about things that we haven't had happen. And that's the category I'm in. That's where I come from that really fuels me doing this podcast, because I've had enough strange things happen in my life that if I try to tell other people, they could easily think I'm crazy or making it up, but I know it's true. Now,
Yeah.
I've not seen a creature that I've thought is a Bigfoot, so I have a little less ability to just automatically believe. However, your books are incredibly compelling and have certainly got me thinking much more along those lines. I have to tell you that. Bottom line is, I see this as a platform for all these types of things to be aired, to be thrown out there, for people to have a chance to think about it, use their own judgment, their own research to come to a conclusion. It's kind of how I see it. And, I think that's really what you're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just putting it out there, and when I started the book during COVID, because had nothing else to do, I really couldn't. I could still go do research into my research areas, but a lot of the restaurants and hotels and motels and campsites were closed.
Hmm.
So I said, well, screw it. I'll just sit here and the reason I wrote the books at all was the the witnesses. And I've interviewed probably 400 to 500 people, and I've had 100 reports published to BFRO,
And,
not worked on. I've
and
worked on three or
BFRO
four.
stands for.
Bigfoot Field Research Organization.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so and here's the irony of it all is that the people are mortified and don't even want to talk to anybody. They'll report it, but they won't leave their name or number,
Mhm.
email, anything, because they just want to get the report, get it off their chest, and go about their day and pretend it never happened. But as the years went by, they started seeing bizarre activity that they couldn't explain. Not just an ape walking across the highway, and oh my God, look at that! What is that? And and that's 50% of the sightings is
Mhm.
a Sasquatch crossing the road.
Wow.
50%. But included in that 50% of just road crossings and of the 100% of the people, they would say after they've told me their story, now you're telling me you just saw a creature that everybody and their mother says does not exist, and you want to tell me something even stranger? Bring it on.
Yeah.
And so that's when people started telling me, because you got to get their trust, So
Yes.
I'm not here to ridicule you. I'm not going to put your name out there. I'm not going to put your location. No one's going to know who you are. All of that stuff. And they start telling me about watching them vaporize, disappear. And what do you do with that? I
Yeah.
mean, how do you can't explain that away? And they're rational, intelligent people, just like you and I,
Hmm.
you know. And they just had a miraculous event that they were present for. And so they started telling me all this bizarre stuff, like walking through trees and getting telepathy and stuff that I've experienced. And so I started, I have, being a real estate agent, I'm a paperwork freak. So I have all my reports typed up, sitting here in files, and I've kept everything. So I started looking at it. I'm going, well, these people saw this. These people saw them talking, the two Sasquatches speaking. They
Hmm.
saw them walk into a tree and disappear. They saw them just vanish in front of them.
Hmm.
And that's what got me going. I saw one vanish one night when I was leading an expedition.
See, and so
And
you're getting to exactly where obviously everybody wants me to go with this, for you to tell some specific stories, which I definitely want you to do. But one thing I wanted to say first, actually, Carter, was I've thought about this too in the sense that why do people have such a hard time believing? I guess one reason is because these are very large creatures. Shouldn't they be easy to spot? We're not talking about I don't know, a beaver or a squirrel or something like that. But then
yeah,
I also thought from my point of view. So for decades now, I have reveled in exploring remote areas around the country, the mountains, the forests, you name it. Unfortunately, I've never seen what I have thought to be a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, but also, with the exception of seeing a bear in Yellowstone and a mountain lion one time in the mountains, I haven't seen bears and mountain lions everywhere either, even though I know they're probably out there. The point
yeah,
being, these are creatures that nobody's claiming have any kind of superpowers or special abilities to, disappear or do anything, but that I don't see them. And so I think that you could have something that's big out there that you just don't see. And that's what's happened with me with these other very large creatures, like a big black bear, something like that, right? So I
Well,
think,
it doesn't mean the Sasquatch haven't seen you.
right.
You know, they're the alpha predator. And the other thing is, you don't find bones. That's the big thing. How come we don't have a body?
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the alpha predators, the elephants, lions, tigers, bears, wolves, you rarely, if ever, find a scrap of their bodies once they pass,
Mm-hmm.
because the alpha predators do not want to be predated on. So if they're injured or sick, they go somewhere and hide, and they either get better or die.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're hiding and they die, well, they're buried. They're done. They're gone.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to see that. And so,
Yeah, that's obviously that's a question you must get and anticipated. That's one that I was going to ask is, have there ever been any remains found? But you just gave a good explanation as to why that might not happen.
yeah. And if you ever, there's a show called The Body Farm. You may be familiar with it.
I've heard
It
of
was
it.
on Discovery for a number of years. It's a place in Tennessee that they take cadavers and all kinds of animals, cattle, whatever animals that have horses, possums, coons, whatever they can find,
Uh-huh.
and then lay them out in the natural surroundings and time them and how
Yeah.
long it takes that body to totally disappear. A human body will be gone in 5 to 10 days.
Yeah. Yeah. They use
Completely
that.
gone.
They use that to help them in investigations with homicides and so forth. And when they find a human body.
Yeah. So if I go lay down under an oak tree and I have a heart attack and I die out in the middle of the woods, well, the predators are going to be on me that night.
Mm-hmm.
And the bot flies come in and lay their larvae in the body, and that helps the decomposition.
Yeah.
The coons and especially opossums, they go for the bones. Everybody and their mother comes to feast on a 150-pound, 200-pound human body.
Yeah.
It's a buffet. Come help yourself, and your body's gone.
Right. And
So
I can say I've come across, deer skulls and rib cages and things like that in my own travels, where if I go back to that same area a few days later, a couple of weeks later, there's less, and maybe sometimes it's completely gone. It's been dragged away.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
So,
that's why,
okay.
and they don't want to be found, and they're highly intelligent. They're far more intelligent than we are.
Right.
So they don't want to be found, and they have these skill sets, I believe, and I've seen one disappear in front of my eyes, so I have ammunition for
Mhm.
my theory. But so if
Well,
they
you know
don't
what?
want to be found,
I would love to hear that. I mean, that'd be a good one to kick it off if you don't mind, to kind of hear what happened in that encounter. Would you mind?
yeah, no, it's an awesome story. So I became an investigator with BFRO.
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to go out on a couple of expeditions, which I did, and you have to show an aptitude and a willingness to get your hands dirty and do the work.
Mhm.
And a lot of it is tedious stuff. But anyway, I was leading an expedition. It's about 11 o'clock at night, and one of our party, there was about 12, 13 of us, somewhere in there. So we split up into two groups. We stayed in one area, and the other group was going to circle, and we had a map. They were going to circle, make a big circle, and come back to where we were and see if they saw or heard anything.
Mhm.
This is, at night. We don't do anything until night. So we're sitting there in silence, waiting for them to come back. We're trying not to make any noise. So at the time, the people that brought me into the group were ape only. There's no such thing as
Oh, okay.
paranormal Bigfoot. It's ape only, and they were hostile and hateful in their defense of their belief system.
Oh boy.
To the point where, well, if you think that, you're a fool, you're an idiot, and a lot of other much worse words. But anyway,
Mhm.
so I'm scanning the forest with my thermal camera, and I see this heat signature coming through the woods. Now this other group had gotten lost, and we had crappy radio service because we were down in a holler.
Oh.
So The radio was intermittent at best. So we were being dead quiet. We were just sitting on our butts doing nothing in the middle of the woods. I see this heat signature coming through the woods. I'm going, oh, thank God they're here finally. Jesus, let's get going here. Well, it wasn't them. It was a Sasquatch. And it came around a corner. And it didn't know we were there because we were literally being quiet. And I cannot believe that they didn't know we were there. And so it walked around a corner, and I'm looking at it, I went, holy crap. And it took one step, a second step, and it just vanished. It was like a flash bulb. Have you ever seen a heat signature on a thermal camera? It's just a glowing light. And there were no clothing. So it's a totally naked Sasquatch with, just the heat signature in the body, no clothing. It was not mistaking it for anything else. It took the second step and it just vanished like a flash bulb went off in front of my face. I was blinded for a moment, if you were standing 2 feet away and shot a flash bulb in front of you. That was what it was like. And right then I went, okay, I'm not stoned. I'm not drunk.
Right.
I'm not on any psychotropic drugs. My equipment is top of the line FLIR thermal gear. Nothing would have made that anything other than what it was.
Exactly.
And so I immediately at that point decided I'm going down to the fork of the road. I'm going left. The rest of you guys, you go right, because I no longer am going to adhere to your belief system, because I've just seen something I'd heard of, but I'd never seen it, and so until I see it, I'll believe it. Well, I saw it, and that changed it. That changed it all for me.
I can see why. I mean, seeing is believing. What you experience, whether other people can get it, they can't get in your brain, but you have it. And I understand that 100%. I think anybody listening to this who's had an experience, whether it be seeing a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, or whether it be telepathy, or whether it be seeing a ghost or whatever, seeing is believing. And you sound like you were, I believe you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was, I mean, I have no skin in the game to push that. I guess I'm saying, well, you can fake anything, you can say anything, because I mean, you got to look at me, my body work, and my ethics and morals, and realize that that's just not me. Yeah. I was happy at the time to believe I'm gonna find one. I'm gonna see one. Yeah. I'm gonna find a body. But there's reasons we don't find bodies. There's reasons you don't see them. They don't want to be seen. If they're going to show themselves to you, they will.
Exactly.
And that's what they do. They're not creatures. They're beings. Mm-hmm. They have a social structure. They have families. They have children. They eat, sleep, drink, poop. They look different. And so that's it. It took me down the path. And so, and that's when I started doing the reports. Because you can assign a report to yourself and just call the witnesses and talk to them and find out what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so that dovetailed perfectly with what some of the witnesses were telling me.
Right. And I think what's important about that story is it's a demonstration of why it's been so difficult to have that just absolutely in your face, absolute proof. Why it's so hard for people like you or anybody to be able to successfully encounter and capture, that this really happened. Because from reading your books, and I've read a couple of them, as you know, there's a variety of things that Bigfoot are able to do, or apparently able to do, that mess with us and our perception and our ability to act normal, including, let's say you have a camera in your hand. You described a story where there was a professional photographer who had his camera right there, saw a Bigfoot, never took a picture. And it seems like it might have been in some of the cases with these people where they've failed to kind of really follow through all the way to the end. They haven't been able to, for a variety of reasons. Shock,
and you're shaking. He's a professional photographer. Yeah. This guy's been in war-torn countries all over the world. It was for Texas Monthly magazine. It's a big magazine. Mm-hmm. And he had a spare camera. He had two cameras, one in his hand and one around his neck. And he could not, for the shock of seeing one and possibly two Sasquatch, he couldn't do it. He was like, oh my God, you're freaking out. And if you're a regular John Doe and Mary Smith walking through the woods together and you see something, by the time you pull out your phone and your hands are trembling, it's going to be a blob squatch no matter what. Plus, I believe, and I'm fairly convinced that they can change their vibrational frequency, so you can stand right there 5 feet from them. They're going to make it look like they're a blob, not like they're nothing. It's a big hairy blob. It's just a big dark tree. It's a tree trunk that got cut off in the middle. I mean, there's a reason that we just don't find them. No, and there's not an animal on the planet we don't have a specimen for,
right?
Except Sasquatch, or the ones that are down in the Mariana Trench in the ocean, 7 miles down in the ocean.
Right.
But we know they're there. We just don't have specimens yet, necessarily. So, but that's how I got to the point where I am totally 110%, locked into they have paranormal and quantum skills we just do not believe they can have, because we've been taught that way.
Right. And because it's completely out of the realm of really that we would think anything or person or being would have. I would love it if you could give some other examples of those kinds of situations where some type of a power or some type of an ability was used that affected the witnesses during the encounter, including their ability to, get the photo, that type of thing.
Yeah, I have a really great story. It involves my wife. She, we share an office here at the house. Every now and then she'll just play around. She'll come in here and she'll look at my, photos and videos and evidence I have on my desk. And she'll go, well, I'm glad you've got a little hobby, honey. I'm glad she'll pat me on the head. Just kind of mess with me,
Right.
And I know she's messing with me, and she's seen this stuff, and she at the time was mostly convinced they exist, but there was still doubt as to some of the things I was describing.
Yeah.
The quantum stuff. So anyway, I said, let's go to my research area. Let's go to one of my research area, and let's just go camp for the weekend, and maybe something will happen. Maybe something won't. Probably now that I'm going to take you somewhere and prove it to you, of course, it won't happen.
Of course, yep.
We get there, and the research area I took her to was the area where I saw that one vanish about 7 or 8 years ago.
Oh.
Before we moved. So that became my research area. And I have a very good friend who just passed away. He's was a preacher, and that was where he had 2 Class A sightings in that exact area. And so, and I would say 75% of the time I have been there, I have seen or heard or felt a presence.
Right.
So I know that's where they live. I call it their living room. They live there. So anyway, my wife's an old Nebraska farm girl. She's not afraid of getting her. She's not a girly girl, so she just go camping, gets dirty and all that stuff. There's no bathroom. I always rough camp, remote camp,
Yeah.
And so we go to this area, and they have this area. It's in Ellington, Missouri. And they have an area there. It's a conservation area. And they have food plots there. And what the food plots are for is to attract any and all types of wildlife, from insects to birds to snakes to bears, big cats, deer, whatever, anything.
Yeah.
And so in these food plots, you can't hunt. You can hunt in the conservation area, but on the food plots, they say there's no hunting here, absolutely. Because the animals are sitting ducks. They're sitting there eating food that are put there by the conservation agents. And so they're just sitting ducks. So anyway, they have this there was about 100 yards from where we parked down to the area I was taking her, which was where I saw that one disappear several years before while I was leading an expedition. And that area has been very lucrative for me. I've got all sorts of things. Anyway, we park and there's a big steel gate that swings across. You cannot drive down this ravine. It's really jagged and rocky, and it's treacherous, especially for four-wheelers. You can't obviously get a car down there, but four-wheelers and stuff like that, they just blocked it off because they got tired. The conservation department got tired of getting phone calls. Can you help tow me out? I got my four-wheeler. I cut my tires with jagged rocks, whatever. Anyway, so there's a big gate, and I backed my SUV up to the gate, and we start walking down, and within a couple of minutes, my wife's already going, nope, I'm done. I'm out. I believe you. I'm creeped out. Something's not right. It's the heebie-jeebies, the hair in the back of her neck was standing up. She got the sense that you're being watched. Everybody gets that.
Yeah.
The sense of being watched.
Sure.
I was getting the same feeling, but I knew what was going on. I knew they lived there, and I could tell from her and my sensations that they were there. That they were there. They're just watching us. They're just, messing with us. So as we go down, we get about a quarter of the way down. She's going, no, I'm done. Take me back. I'm done. I believe you. I don't like it here. It's creeping me out. And so I said, she said, well, give me the keys. I said, no, you're not getting the keys. They're in my pocket. We're going to go down. Nothing's going to happen. And so she said, no, I want to go. So I take my flashlight and I point it up to where my car was parked. Look, we're finding the car's right there. And I'm looking at the gate and my car is gone. I'm going, where's the car? And she's looking up there. She goes, what do you mean, where's the car? It's right there. You're shining your light on it. I said, no, the car's gone. Where the blankety blank is my car? And so for whatever reason, I shined it down to where we were going, thinking like somehow, okay, I got turned around or whatever. And there's my car at the bottom of this ravine, at the end of the ravine.
No way.
Where it could not possibly be. And I'm shining the light down there. I said, well, there's my car. How did it get down there? And she's looking at me going, you quit messing with me. You stop this right now. The car's not there. What do you mean it's there? Look, the car's there. How'd it get there? I shine it back up to where it was. It's not there. And she sees it is there. What are you doing? Quit messing with me.
So you're seeing two completely different realities. You're seeing at the bottom of the ravine. She's seeing it up above you.
Yeah, she's seen it where it was.
Yeah.
And it never left.
Wow.
The Sasquatch were, I will call it mental telepathy. This will probably stretch the credulity of some people, but I went there to show her. The Sasquatch were there to show me what they can do. And so after about 10 minutes of this, we go ahead and go back because she's freaked. But for 10 or 15 minutes, I was thoroughly convinced I was seeing it physically where it could not possibly be. Even if you couldn't even helicopter it in and drop it down there.
Right.
There's too much canopy, too much tree. So they were messing with me. And that was my first introduction to the mental telepathy.
Where they essentially cause an hallucination, I guess is one way of saying it.
Yeah. I was seeing something that wasn't there. Totally blew her mind. And it blew my mind. But I was already convinced they had these skills. I just had not experienced it. I'd been hearing about it from witnesses and things of that nature. I had all kinds of reports from witnesses about this very thing. And so that was a defining moment for me because it solidified my belief to take the fork in the road going the other direction. And so and I was freaking out. I was like, I was getting excited and agitated. I was going, well, how can that be? And then suddenly I said, and I called him a dirty name, you guys are messing with me. You are messing with me. I'll be, gosh dang it. I came here to show her and you're showing me, oh my God, I can't believe this. It was it was just one of
Oh,
those aha
unbelievable.
moments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd think you're going crazy, but you know you weren't. And it obviously what it tells you is if they could do that, then they could obviously
Mhm.
they could even just make it so you don't see them. Right if they're right there in
Mhm.
front of you, it sounds like. They could be 20 feet away,
Yeah.
but they're projecting something else, causing hallucinations so you don't even see them.
Yeah. I've had dozens of witnesses tell me they were looking right at one and didn't have a camera, but they weren't trying to take a picture. They were looking right at it, and it slowly just disappeared right in front of them. It vaporized. It just vanished.
Hmm.
It didn't even run or walk. It was just standing there, and then it wasn't there.
That
Just
makes me
like
think of like
somebody.
an interdimensional type thing where, it
Yeah,
can come and go from our reality, perhaps, or something like that.
it's exactly what it is. Interdimensional or portals. So they use dimensions or portals
Hmm.
to get from one area to another. And
So
that's
when people
getting
tell you
into.
these things, I bet you get a full range of everything from they're automatically assuming you aren't going to believe them to them feeling like they need to assure you that they're sane because it's probably hard for these people to sometimes come forward with this stuff. It's just like it has been with UFOs.
Well, yeah, people don't even want to talk about a Sasquatch sighting, period,
Yeah.
because their wife, their husband, their spouses, their co-workers, significant others, they're the ones that will make fun of you the worst because they know they can.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to be able to take it because, well, we're in a relationship. I'm just messing. You can't be serious. You didn't see a Sasquatch. Come on, they don't exist.
Hmm.
So you get tired of hearing that, especially if it's coworkers. So you just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go to the grave. I've talked to people that have been sitting on something for 20, 30 years and they finally come forward because my reputation is one that I am not going to diss you. I believe you because I've experienced it myself.
Right.
And if you like, I will put your story in the book
Hmm.
and I will not use your name, your location, or anything because the name and location does not matter. It's the event. It doesn't matter where it is. It's
True.
what is happening. So as I went through the years of doing this, my name and reputation got around. Hey, call this guy. And I get something once or twice a month from a complete stranger
Hmm.
wanting to tell me something
Hmm. Well, and
because
any of
I'm.
the listeners to this show, I'm sure are welcome to do that, and as well to contact me with anything like that. I think I welcome any kind of reports for sure.
Yeah. The thing is, you know somebody, you may not know it, but you know somebody that has had an experience and isn't going to say anything.
Right.
You just don't know it because they're not saying anything.
Right. Uh,
It might be a friend of a friend or somebody in your family, a cousin you never see or something, you
hmm.
know. I've had so many hunters tell me, well, I've been hunting these woods for 30 years. If something like that existed, I'd have seen it. I hadn't seen it, so it doesn't exist.
Hmm.
Then half of those guys end up contacting me later going, can we talk?
There you go. I knew it. I knew it.
Like,
And I actually want to ask you about one of those encounters from one of your books. But before I do, I noticed you mentioned the classification. You mentioned a Class A encounter. So I think it'd be good to have you explain that classification system and what it means.
yeah, well, okay. BFRO has a classification system. Well, a Class A is a visual, unmistakable sighting, something you and or another person physically saw it. You look at it, you saw it, you know what you saw. A Class B is something you heard. You heard a noise, you heard a growl, you heard a howl,
Hmm.
you heard a tree branch break, you heard knocks, you heard something, but you saw nothing, but it spooked you. Your spidey senses went berserk when you started hearing things and growls and snorts and stuff like that. So that's a Class B. You're pretty sure you know what it is, but you didn't see it, so you really can't say what it was.
Right.
A Class C is third hand, second hand story.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
my uncle saw one. He told me when he was 12 years old, he saw one when he was plowing the North 40. Well, that's second hand or third hand knowledge. My uncle told me about my grandpa who saw one. So that's third hand, that's three times removed
I see.
from reality.
Yeah.
So that's the Class A, Class B, Class C. Class A and B's, they will post to the website you go to.
Hmm.
Class C's, they don't even mess with
Sure.
because that could be anybody just messing with you.
Yeah.
The categories you don't see, the public doesn't see, is UFO, crazy, hallucinating, obvious hoax, stuff of that nature.
Right.
You don't like a report, and when people start saying, "I saw one walk into a tree and it never came out the other side," you'll never see that report.
Oh, really?
Never.
They just
Ever.
it's just disregarded kind of by the system?
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
So I did want to circle back to the idea of the hunter as a witness in the sense that obviously I think that strikes me and probably many people as the ultimate witness that would be in a position to, let's be honest, right? Take a shot. And there'd be an incentive for a lot of hunters to do that, I suppose, because if they knew what they thought they were seeing was a Bigfoot, many of them might think, wow, this would be an incredible opportunity to really make history. But I don't know of any situation where that's happened, with the exception of, I think I mentioned to you as we were kind of getting ready for this show about Art Bell and the Art Bell show, and I'm a big fan. I think you had told me you've listened to him over the years. He had an episode where there was a hunter by the name of Bugs who claimed that he had shot two of them and buried them. In fact, he actually said that he had a map that designated where this happened that he gave to his wife, and when he passed away, he was going to have his wife give the map to Art Bell so that Art Bell could release it to the world. But anyway, what would you have to say about that idea of why have we not heard of a hunter shooting one and then having a body?
There's all kinds of stories about that.
Okay.
And they just the bodies, some of the stories, the bodies have been dug up and taken.
Oh.
Probably by the Sasquatch. Because there is a $2 to $5 million bounty on bringing a body in.
Oh, there is officially.
Oh yeah, officially.
Who's put that out there? Do you know?
Random people, business groups. There's a couple of researchers or hunter types.
Yeah.
That have said we will pay a fee if you bring us a body.
Boy.
So if there really was one buried on private land or something, and there was money to be made, excuse me, they would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Many times, there are stories of bodies being buried, and the next day, the body is gone. It's been probably dug up by the Sasquatch clan and taken someplace else.
Right. Well, yeah, I remember one of your books where the hunter was up in the tree stand, and as I recall, there was a deer that ran past him. He then heard something coming through the woods. This would have been at night, coming through the woods behind him, behind the tree, and then he caught a glimpse of the Bigfoot. Eventually, the Bigfoot, I believe, ran away from him, and he turned on his headlamp and kind of saw it from the side as it was running away. And It didn't really address whether he ever attempted to try to shoot at it or anything, but it got me thinking, as I'm sure it would many people, that a lot of hunters would do that even just out of fear, right? Tell you what, though, Carter, we're about 45 minutes in, so let's go ahead and finish up this episode, part 1 of the 2 parts of my talk with you. So everybody, please join us on the other side, where we continue our talk with Carter, and we'll go into this aspect of encounters between Bigfoot and hunters, an area that's long fascinated me, because for one thing, you would think that a hunter would successfully shoot one, for instance, right? Whether that's morally right or not. And then we would have some very direct evidence of their existence. So we'll cover that and more in part 2 of my interview with Carter. Until then, please know that wherever you are in space and time, here it is always midnight on the prairie.